The scream echoed through the halls of the Blackwood mansion like a dark omen. Emma clutched the breakfast tray tightly, her fingers trembling as she watched the elegant woman before her shed false tears onto the Persian rug. Margaret Blackwood, the third wife of millionaire Thomas Blackwood, was an exceptional actress, especially when a fortune was at stake. "You don't understand," Margaret sobbed, adjusting her diamond ring. "He needs someone more qualified." Emma kept her chin up, 15 years of experience as a nurse strengthening her posture. Her calloused hands from years of work contrasted with the luxurious surroundings, but her green eyes carried an unshakable determination. The orphanage where she grew up had taught her that dignity had no price. It was something even the Blackwoods couldn't buy. "Mrs. Blackwood, your shouting might disturb your husband," Emma replied with professional calm, though her heart pounded. "Mr. Thomas needs peace." The mansion, with its mahogany-paneled walls and whispered stories, seemed to swallow Emma's words. Upstairs, Thomas Blackwood was battling terminal cancer, his days numbered like the pages of the calendar Margaret anxiously observed. Emma climbed the stairs, leaving the theatrical sobs behind. As she entered the master bedroom, the atmosphere changed completely. Thomas sat in his antique armchair, gazing at the garden through the window. His eyes, still bright despite the illness, turned to her with an unsettling intensity. "Emma," he called, his voice weak but determined. "Close the door, please." She obeyed, sensing that something important was about to happen. The man everyone described as a ruthless businessman seemed different there, vulnerable, human. "I need you to be my daughter," he said bluntly. Emma froze, the tray still in her hands. "Excuse me?" "Legally, temporarily," Thomas explained, his fingers drumming on the armrest of the chair. "There are documents that only a family member can access. Margaret cannot know." He coughed, a harsh sound reverberating through the room. "She is not who she appears to be." The request was absurd, unethical, possibly illegal. Emma should refuse immediately, maintain her professionalism, protect her nursing license. But there was something in Thomas's eyes, a mixture of desperation and hope, that made her hesitate. "Why me?" she asked, finally setting the tray on the side table. Thomas smiled, a sad smile that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 secrets. "Because you remind me of someone I lost a long time ago." At that moment, a thunderclap split the sky outside, as if nature itself wanted to underline the gravity of the situation. Emma felt a shiver run down her spine, a strange sensation that she was about to dive into waters much deeper than she imagined. "If I accept," she began cautiously, "you will have my full protection," Thomas assured her. "And more importantly, the truth. All of it." Emma looked out the window, watching the first raindrops fall on the immaculate garden. In her 32 years of life, she had always been the one to care for others, to follow the rules, to keep everything under control. But there, in that room suffocated by secrets and the imminence of death, something inside her changed. "When do we start?" she asked, sealing her fate with 3 simple words. Days at the Blackwood mansion flowed like thick honey, slow, dense, filled with unspoken secrets. Emma established a meticulous routine. She arrived before sunrise when the mist still embraced the garden, prepared Thomas's medication, and observed every detail with increasingly attentive eyes. Margaret rarely appeared before noon, always perfumed and impeccable, as if she were ready for a photo shoot. Her high heels struck the wooden floor with the precision of a metronome, and she never missed a chance to remind Emma of her place. Always an employee, never part of the family. But in the quiet moments with Thomas, Emma discovered a man different from the stories told about him. His hands, once known for sealing ruthless business deals, now trembled as he held a teacup. His eyes, said to have destroyed corporate empires with a single look, softened as he recounted stories from the past. "My first daughter," he whispered one particularly difficult afternoon when the pain made him more vulnerable. "She had your eyes. Emerald green, like a spring day." Emma adjusted the four, trying to ignore the tightness in her chest. "What happened to her?" "Catherine, her mother, died in childbirth. I was devastated, lost. When they told me the baby didn't survive either." His voice faltered, decades of pain condensed into unspoken words. "Now, looking at you, sometimes I wonder." The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Emma felt her hands tremble slightly as she organized the medications. Her own past at the orphanage had always been a blank page. No parents' names, no history, just a date and a small silver locket she carried to this day. "The documents I need you to access," Thomas continued, his voice steadier, "are in the family's old law office. They are records Margaret must not find. Why would she be looking for them?" Thomas closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. "Because they prove she is not who she claims to be. And there is more, much more at stake than just money." That night, back in her small apartment, Emma took off the locket from around her neck, a habit she had when she needed to think. The silver surface, marked by time, reflected the dim light of the lamp. Inside, a single engraved date, the same as the birth of Thomas's daughter. Her hands trembled as she put the locket away. The coincidences were beginning to align, like stars forming a constellation impossible to ignore. The weight of the decision she had made to help Thomas now carried a much deeper and more personal meaning. A soft sound snapped her out of her thoughts. A message on her phone. It was from the lawyer Thomas had recommended, confirming the time to begin the documentation process. Tomorrow, she would officially start pretending to be Thomas Blackwood's daughter. Emma looked out the window of her modest apartment, watching the lights of the city that never slept. Somewhere, among the skyscrapers and shadows, lay the truth about her past. And maybe, just maybe, fate wasn't just playing a cruel trick by putting all these coincidences in her path. That night, her dreams were filled with fragmented images. A crying baby, a silver locket shining in the sunlight, and Thomas Blackwood's eyes that, like her own, carried the weight of unanswered questions. Upon leaving the office, Emma knew she was carrying more than just documents in her bag. She was carrying the weight of a truth that could either save or destroy lives. The race against time had begun, and she needed to act quickly to save not only Thomas, but also herself. The sunset painted Thomas's room in amber hues as Emma entered, carrying not only the tray with his evening medications, but also the burden of a devastating secret. Her hands trembled slightly as she replaced the medicine bottles, swapping everything Margaret had touched for new ones she had brought from the pharmacy. Thomas watched his daughter with tired yet attentive eyes. "Something has changed in you," he said softly, his voice laced with a paternal concern that made Emma's heart ache in a completely new way. "We need to talk," Emma replied, carefully closing the door. She sat in the chair beside his bed, her hands instinctively reaching for the locket around her neck. "I found the documents in the office, but I also discovered something else." The silence between them was laden with 32 years of untold stories, of hugs never given, of moments stolen by fate. Emma removed the locket and placed it in Thomas's hand. "Catherine gave this to me, didn't she?" Thomas's fingers caressed the silver surface, silent tears streaming down his aged face. "I searched for you for years," he managed to say, his voice breaking. "They told me you hadn't survived. How? How did you end up in the orphanage?" "Margaret is poisoning you," Emma interrupted, the urgency of the moment overriding her fear. "The symptoms, the tests, it's not just a cancer. She's using thallium." Thomas's face grew even paler, though not with surprise. "I suspected," he admitted, but I couldn't prove it. I needed someone with medical expertise, someone I could trust completely. Is that why you brought me here? No, Thomas replied as he took her hand, a gesture as natural as breathing. Fate brought you to me. When I saw your eyes, the same eyes as Catherine's, I knew I had to uncover the truth. The rest was simply a father's heart trying to protect you. A noise in the corridor made them both freeze. Margaret's footsteps approached, the sound of her heels marking a countdown to what was coming. I can't leave you here, Emma whispered, her protective instincts surging. She'll notice I switched the medications. We need to get you out of here. Emma, Thomas squeezed her hand with surprising strength. There's a country house. The address is on the back of the locket. Catherine and I used to go there. No one else knows about it. As the footsteps drew nearer, Emma quickly tucked the locket away and resumed her professional composure. Something had fundamentally changed. She was no longer just a nurse protecting her patient. She was a daughter fighting to save her father. Tomorrow, she promised softly. I'll get you out tomorrow. Margaret entered the room, her artificial smile frozen, as she saw Emma still there. Still working so late? Such dedication. Just ensuring that Mr. Blackwood is comfortable, Emma replied, holding Margaret's gaze without faltering. Now! In her veins ran the blood of the Blackwoods, a legacy of strength she had never known she possessed. That night, as Emma left the mansion, she understood that the next 24 hours would change everything. The plan had to be perfect. There was no room for error when it came to saving the only family she truly had. Morning arrived with a dense fog that enveloped the gardens of the Blackwood mansion, as if nature itself conspired to hide what was to come. Emma walked through the gates with her nurse's bag heavier than usual. Inside, not only medical supplies, but also essential documents and the precious locket that now carried the weight of her entire history. The plan was simple: to convince Margaret to go downtown to handle matters, giving Emma enough time to get Thomas out of the mansion. But when she entered his room that morning, her heart skipped a beat. Thomas was far paler than usual, his breathing irregular. What did she do? Emma whispered, rushing to check his vital signs. Her hands trembled as she connected the heart monitor. "T," Thomas murmured, his eyes struggling to stay open. She insisted, last night. A chill ran down Emma's spine. Margaret must have noticed the medication switch and decided to act more directly. Time was running out faster than she had imagined. With precise movements honed by years of experience, Emma began emergency treatment. Every second felt like an eternity as she fought to stabilize the man she had just discovered was her father. Silent tears streamed down her face as she worked, the fear of losing Thomas now weighing even more heavily on her. "Stay with me," she pleaded softly. "I won't lose you again." It was then that she noticed something unusual on the bedside table, an envelope partially hidden under the lamp. With trembling hands, Emma opened it. Inside, she found a letter written by Catherine, her mother, dated the day of her birth. "My dear daughter," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means that Thomas has finally found you. There is so much I need to tell you." The door suddenly swung open. Margaret stood at the entrance, her cold eyes fixed on the scene. In her hand was a paper that Emma immediately recognized, a copy of the paternity test she had found in the office. "So it's true," Margaret said, her voice as sharp as ice. "The little nurse is the lost heiress." "How convenient. You are poisoning him," Emma replied, stepping protectively between Margaret and Thomas. "I have proof." "Proof?" Margaret laughed, a sound devoid of joy. "My dear, you don't understand. I have the hospital board in the palm of my hand. One word from me, and your nursing license is gone. Who will believe you?" Emma felt the weight of her mother's letter in her pocket. "Everyone," she said with a calm she didn't know she possessed. Because I am no longer just a nurse. I am Emma Catherine Blackwood, and I have 32 years of truths to tell. Margaret's face twisted into a mask of fury, replacing her artificial smile. She took a step forward but halted when voices echoed in the corridor. The nursing team Emma had secretly summoned was arriving. "This isn't over," Margaret hissed, retreating toward the door. Emma turned her attention back to Thomas, who had begun to awaken. Their eyes met. Decades of lost love and unspoken pain converging in a single look. "The letter," he whispered. "Catherine knew. She always knew you would survive." Emma held his hand, feeling the weak yet persistent pulse beneath her fingers. Time was running out, but now something stronger than fear drove her actions. The love of a family that refused to be destroyed. As the afternoon sun streamed through the tall mansion windows, Emma finished making the necessary preparations. Her hands moved with precision as she organized the medical equipment required to transport Thomas. Every second was precious. The nursing team she had called kept Margaret busy with administrative issues downstairs, buying them the time they needed. Thomas watched his daughter with a mix of pride and concern. "You have so much of her in you," he whispered, his voice weak yet full of emotion. Catherine always knew exactly what to do in a crisis. Emma paused, taking a moment to hold her father's hand. The warmth of that simple touch carried decades of lost love, now finally found. "Tell me about her," she asked while preparing the special wheelchair she had managed to secure. "She was a nurse, just like you." Thomas smiled, his eyes shining with cherished memories. "That's how we met. I was in the hospital because of a car accident, young and arrogant. She taught me that there are things money cannot buy." The sound of hurried footsteps in the corridor interrupted the moment. Emma quickly finished setting up the portable monitoring equipment. The plan was simple yet risky. To take Thomas to the country house mentioned on the locket, a retreat that Catherine had chosen years ago. "Mr. Blackwood," Margaret's voice rang out over the room's intercom. "We need to discuss the new will immediately. The lawyers are here." Emma exchanged a meaningful glance with Thomas. "Now," she whispered, helping him to stand carefully. Every movement was a delicate dance between urgency and care. When they reached the private elevator that led to the garage, they heard Margaret's furious voice discovering the empty room. Emma pressed the button forcefully, her heart beating in time with the descending elevator lights. "She's going to try to stop us," Thomas warned, his breathing irregular with effort. "Not this time," Emma replied firmly. From her pocket, she produced a small recorder. "While you were asleep, she confessed everything. She thought she was boasting to a frightened nurse." The elevator doors opened into the silent garage. Emma pushed the wheelchair with determination, each step bringing them closer to freedom. The car she had prepared waited, its rear door modified to accommodate the wheelchair. Then, the garage lights suddenly went out. In the darkness, Emma heard the sound of Margaret's heels approaching. Instinctively, she stepped in front of Thomas, her eyes gradually adjusting to the dim emergency light. "You really thought it would be that easy?" Margaret's voice echoed in the dark. "That you could simply show up after 30 years and claim everything?" "I didn't come to claim anything," Emma replied, her tone calm yet resolute. "I came to save my father." The emergency light flickered, revealing Margaret a few meters away, holding an envelope. "I have a new will here. Thomas already signed it. Everything will be mine, and you'll go back to the nothingness you came from." "Look at her, Margaret," Thomas said, his voice gaining strength. "See Catherine's eyes. The same green, the same determination. You may have forged documents. You may have been slowly poisoning me, but you cannot erase the truth before you." The sound of sirens sliced through the air. Emma smiled, a smile imbued with her mother's strength and her father's resolve. "The police are on their way. That recorded confession? I didn't send it just for me." Margaret stepped back, her face a mask of fury and fear. The lights flickered back on, revealing police officers entering the garage ramp. The nightmare was finally coming to an end. 3 months later, the country house that Catherine had cherished so deeply blossomed with new life. The garden, once dormant through decades of absence, now bloomed under Emma's care. Each flower a small celebration of a new beginning. Thomas, seated on the veranda in his chair, watched his daughter tend to the rose bushes that Catherine had planted long ago. The fresh air of the countryside and proper treatment worked wonders for his recovery. With the constant poison no longer in his system, Thomas grew stronger each day. The doctors were optimistic. The cancer, detected early, responded well to treatment. It was as if the universe conspired to give father and daughter back the time that had been stolen from them. "Your mother used to say that white roses signified new beginnings," Thomas remarked, his voice stronger than it had been in months. In his lap rested Catherine's diary, discovered in an old box in the attic. Its yellowed pages recounted a story of deep love and the heart-wrenching pain of losing a daughter. Emma approached, removing her gardening gloves, and sat beside her father, letting the comfortable silence envelop them. "Tell me more about her," she asked, as she did every afternoon. Each story was a piece of the puzzle of her own identity, each memory a precious gift. "She had a ritual," Thomas began, a gentle smile playing on his lips. "Every morning, she wrote a letter for you. Even after they told us that you hadn't survived, she kept writing. She said that her mother's heart knew that one day you would read every one of them." Emma squeezed his hand, silent tears marking her face. The letters, discovered along with the diary, were her most tangible connection to the mother she never knew. Through them, she felt the love Catherine had nurtured, the strength she had passed on, and the hope that had never died. "She was right all along," Emma whispered. "I found my way back." The afternoon sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, casting soft shadows on Thomas's face. "Do you know what else she wrote?" he said, opening the diary to a marked page. "That true love has the power to heal all wounds, even those that seem impossible to mend." A gentle breeze stirred the curtains, carrying the scent of roses. Inside, above the fireplace, a recent photograph showed father and daughter smiling, with the silver locket around Emma's neck gleaming in the sunlight. Next to it, an old photo of Catherine, with emerald green eyes identical to Emma's, seemed to smile upon the reunited family. Margaret awaited trial, her lies finally exposed. The Blackwood Empire endured, but now with new values. The very values that Catherine had always championed. Emma divided her time between caring for her father and launching social programs through the family foundation, transforming wealth into opportunities for orphaned children. "I think I finally understand," Emma said, watching the sunset. "Why I became a nurse, why I always felt this pull to care for others. It was her all this time, guiding me even without my knowing." Thomas squeezed her hand gently. "Catherine always said that true love finds its way, no matter how long it takes. She never lost hope that one day our family would be complete again." That night, as the stars began to stud the sky, Emma discovered one final letter in the diary, dated the day Catherine passed away. Its final words embraced the present with the wisdom of the past. "My dear daughter, when you read this, know that love is stronger than any distance, deeper than any secret, truer than any lie. You found your way back home, exactly as I always knew you would. Be happy, my love. Be free. Be yourself." And Emma was. Finally, completely, truly was. Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, please leave your comments below. Share your thoughts, and let us know if you want more moving stories like this one. To catch our next narratives, Subscribe to the channel Soul and History and hit the notification bell. Your support is essential for us to continue sharing stories that warm the soul and inspire hearts. Until next time,